ってきた。危ない。
Let's continue with the first story. Good evening, community. My name is Maro and I've been driving trailers for more than 15 years all over the country. I love my job, but I also know it has its dark side. There are things that can happen on the road that have no logical explanation, and what happened to me some time ago is something that still keeps me from sleeping peacefully. I don't know if it was something supernatural, or if I was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, but I know that night changed the way I see the highways. It was a long trip heading south with a load of products for a large store. Everything was normal, the night was calm, the road empty. I was crossing a mountain stretch I knew well, but it always gave me a bad feeling. It's one of those roads where you know that if something happens to you, nobody is going to find you until the next morning. Around 2 in the morning, I noticed something strange. The truck began to lose speed as if it were climbing a steep hill, even though the road was flat. I checked the gauges and everything seemed fine. The engine sounded normal but didn't have enough power to move forward. I thought maybe it was the load, although I had done the same route before without problems. So I decided to stop at a curve where there was enough space to pull over and check. When I got out of the truck, the first thing I noticed was the silence. No wind, no crickets, none of the typical sounds of the night in the mountains. It was as if everything around me had been switched off. I grabbed my flashlight and checked the engine. Everything was in order, nothing out of place. I walked back to the trailer to make sure the load was secured. I opened the doors, and what I saw didn't sit well with me. The load was in place, tied exactly as I had secured it when I left. But on the floor of the trailer there was something that shouldn't have been there, handprints in the dust, as if someone had been crawling inside. The worst part was that those marks hadn't been there at the beginning of the trip. I was absolutely sure of that. I slammed the trailer doors shut, trying to convince myself they were old marks, maybe from a worker when the load was put in. I got back into the truck and decided to keep going. I pushed the accelerator as much as I could to get out of that mountain stretch as fast as possible, because there was a heavy, strange vibe in the place. Every so often I glanced at the mirrors, thinking I'd eventually see something in them. It wasn't until I went into a sharp curve that I felt a strange movement in the trailer, like something heavy had shifted. There was a loud bang, as if something had come loose and slammed against one of the walls. I braked hard and got out with the flashlight to check again. I opened the doors carefully to see that everything was in order, but this time I froze. Besides the handprints, there were now barefoot footprints crossing from one end of the trailer to the other. They were small, like a child's, but perfectly marked in the dust. This time I was sure those footprints hadn't been there when I checked the first time. I hurried back into the truck, desperate to get away from that place. I hit the accelerator, trying not to think about what I had just seen, but the road seemed endless, the curves never stopped. I turned on the radio to distract myself, but all I got was static. Every time I looked in the mirrors, I felt as if something was moving behind the truck, but I never managed to see anything clearly. Until one of those times. I did see something. In the right side mirror, I noticed something at the back door of the trailer. A face peeking out, pale, with dark eyes staring straight at me. I felt my heart stop for a second. I turned my head to look directly, and I saw how it pulled back, hiding behind the rear door to avoid being seen. But even when I looked away, from the corner of my eye I could still see that face stuck to the mirror, unmoving. No matter how hard I pressed the accelerator, the truck wouldn't go faster. The speed stayed the same, as if something were holding it back. Then I felt a thump on the back of the truck, as if something had jumped onto the trailer. The sound was clear, the heavy footsteps moving across the roof. I didn't want to look up, I didn't want to know what it was. I just kept driving, praying for the road to end soon. Finally, I saw the lights of a small town in the distance. The relief was immediate. I managed to get to the first gas station I found, stopped, got out of the truck, and ran straight to the store just to find anyone, so I wouldn't be alone. The gas station clerk looked at me strangely, as if I were crazy, but I didn't care. I felt relieved just being in someone's company. After a few minutes and catching my breath, I finally dared to check the truck. There was nothing out of place. The load was intact, the doors closed, and the footprints in the trailer had disappeared. All that remained was the echo of the banging I had heard and the image of that pale face burned into my memory. I don't know what it was that I saw and heard that night. I only know that there are many things in this world we cannot understand. And without a doubt, in the most remote places, we can encounter such strange situations that they make us question everything we think we know about the world. Hello Prater, I'm Lavia, a trucker for more than 10 years. I haul everything, machinery, food, whatever you can imagine. Highways are my office and gas stations are my coffee shops. I actually enjoy this life, no bosses breathing down your neck, the scenery changes every day, and there's something about driving at night that I've always found relaxing. But in this line of work you also learn that the road can be treacherous. Not only because of accidents or robberies, but because sometimes you run into things that leave your head spinning for days. Once something happened to me that still makes me doubt everything. I don't know if it was just bad luck, or if I was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. But I'll tell you exactly how I lived it, so you can tell me what you would have done. It all started on one of those routes nobody wants to take, long, desolate stretches, but you have to do them because, well, work is work. That night I was hauling a load of tools toward a town near the border. The trip was calm at first, straight highway, few vehicles, and not a cloud in the sky. I like driving at night because there's less traffic, and with good music, time flies. After a while, the GPS signaled a detour. It was a secondary road, the kind that's not in great condition but saves a few miles. I usually follow the GPS, though that road gave me a bad feeling from the start. The road was so narrow the truck barely fit, and the only sounds were the engine and the crickets. Nothing else. I was driving calmly when I saw a car parked on the shoulder. An old sedan, the kind that looks like it ran out of gas. Its hazard lights were flashing but nobody was around. At first I figured maybe the driver had gone to look for help. But I wasn't about to stop in such a dark place just to find out. So I kept going. But a few miles ahead, I saw another car exactly like it, with the lights blinking. I slowed down a bit because it seemed strange. I thought, could it be the same one? But it couldn't be, it hadn't passed me. That's when I started to get uneasy, but I told myself I was probably tired, seeing things. Then I saw something that really froze me. A trailer stopped in the middle of the road, no hazard lights, the cab doors wide open. I slowed down carefully to take a look but stayed inside my truck. I've heard plenty of stories about highway traps where abandoned vehicles are used to ambush drivers. I switched on my high beams for a better view, and that's when I noticed it, bloodstains on the side of the cab and the windshield shattered from the inside. My gut told me to start the truck and get out of there, but part of me wanted to understand what had happened. I got out of my truck with my flashlight and carefully approached the trailer. I looked around but saw no one. I checked inside the cab and, believe it or not, it was empty. No signs of a struggle, just that blood and silence. I went back to my truck, my heart pounding, and as I drove off I saw lights in my mirror. It was the same old sedan I'd seen earlier, now it was following me. I tried to stay calm, thinking maybe it was just another driver on the same route. But the car didn't try to pass me or fall back, it stayed at a steady distance. Whenever I sped up, they sped up. When I slowed down, they slowed down. I turned on my radio, hoping to reach someone in the area, but got no response. My phone had no signal either. After a while, I came to a sharp curve and found an improvised roadblock, branches, rocks, and a couple of rusty signs. I had to brake hard as the car behind me stopped a few yards back, and immediately 2 men got out. One had a crowbar, the other something that looked like a gun. My head was buzzing with adrenaline. I locked the truck doors and tried to think fast. Do I floor it and plow through the blockade? Do I stay and try to negotiate? While I hesitated, the men got closer, shouting things I couldn't make out. I don't know if it was instinct or pure panic, but I slammed the accelerator and aimed the truck straight at the blockade. The impact was rough, but the trailer crushed the branches and rocks easily. The men ran back to their car, and in the mirror I saw them trying to follow, but the wreckage slowed them down. I kept driving, not daring to look back, my heart in my throat. I didn't know if I'd left them behind for good or if something worse was waiting ahead. Luckily, nothing else happened the rest of the trip. But my story didn't end there. The next day, once I reached my destination, I inspected the truck for damage from the impact. While checking, I noticed something strange, a small box wrapped in black tape, hidden under the passenger seat. It wasn't mine, and it hadn't been there when I left. I opened it carefully, and what I found left me in shock: bundles of cash, some small packets of white powder, and a note that said, "We left this for you in case you change your mind." That's when I understood everything. Those men weren't just following me, they wanted to use me. Maybe they were trying to trick me into transporting something without my consent, or maybe they wanted to pin it on me later. I don't want to know what their real plan was. But since that night, I've thought a lot about it. Maybe it was luck that I got out alive, or maybe someone up there was watching over me. If I hadn't escaped, I might not be here to tell this story. Thanks, Prater, for sharing it. Hello, I'm Mather. I've been a trucker for years and I've driven across almost every highway in the country. I've always liked driving at night for the peace and light traffic, but after what happened to me some time ago, I've learned to respect those desolate routes much more. I don't tell this to just anyone because, honestly, I don't even know if what I experienced was real or if my mind just made me see things that weren't there. But here it goes. It was one of those calm nights, the sky clear with a light breeze, perfect for driving without problems. I had been assigned a light load headed to a town in the mountains, and the route included a lonely stretch that passed through plains and scattered forests. It wasn't the prettiest road, but at that hour I didn't care. With good music and a thermos of coffee, everything seemed fine. I had already driven quite a while when, on a curve, something caught my attention: several bonfires on the horizon, in an open plain next to the road. It wasn't unusual to see people camping in those areas, especially farm workers or rural communities, but what struck me as strange was the alignment of the bonfires. They were perfectly spaced out, as if someone had measured their positions. All of them the same size, burning with the same intensity. I told myself it must have been a coincidence and kept driving, though I couldn't get the image out of my head. It was just too odd. A few kilometers later, the truck started acting up. First, the engine began making a strange noise, like it was losing power. Then the lights flickered a couple of times before stabilizing. I'm no mechanic, but I knew that wasn't normal. I decided to pull over before I got stranded in the middle of nowhere. The highway was completely empty, not a single car in either direction. I shut off the engine, grabbed my flashlight, and stepped out. The moment my foot hit the ground, the wind changed. It was as if everything around me had suddenly stopped. The crickets that had been constant just a moment ago went silent. I couldn't hear anything, not even the wind through the trees. Just silence, so heavy that even my own footsteps sounded too loud. While I was checking the engine, I started hearing something in the distance. Laughter. But not normal laughter, soft, like several people talking and laughing in low voices, almost like murmurs. I looked toward the bonfires I had seen earlier and noticed they were still burning, but now they seemed closer. I told myself it must be campers or people from a nearby ranch and tried to focus on the truck. But after a few minutes, I realized nothing was actually wrong with the engine. Everything looked fine, but the noise wouldn't go away. Then I felt it. That sensation of being watched. I looked around, and when I focused again on the bonfires, I realized there were figures. Human shapes, or at least that's what they looked like, standing around the flames. They weren't moving or doing anything. Just standing there, watching in my direction. I felt deeply unsettled, but tried to stay calm. Maybe my mind was making me see shapes in the dark, or maybe they were just shadows cast by the fire. I climbed back into the truck quickly, locked the door, and tried to start the engine. Nothing. I turned the key again and again, but the truck wouldn't respond. Then I heard a soft tap on the windshield, like something had touched it. I looked immediately, and there was a handprint, as if someone had pressed their palm covered in ash against the glass. I don't know what I was thinking, but I got out again, determined to check everything and get out of there fast. I walked to the back of the trailer to make sure the cargo was intact, but as I did, I heard footsteps behind me. I spun around with my flashlight, but there was no one, just the lonely road. When I looked back toward the bonfires, I noticed one of them was slowly going out. Then another. And another. The silence was absolute again. No laughter, no murmurs, only my breathing and the sound of my own steps. I jumped back into the cab, locked the door, and tried the engine once more. This time it started, though weakly. The lights came on, and that's when I saw something that made me slam the accelerator without thinking. The figures that had been around the bonfires were now standing right next to the road, perfectly lined up, just like the bonfires had been. They were tall, thin, and though I couldn't make out their faces, I knew they were staring at me. I floored it, leaving that stretch and those figures behind me. I didn't look back, not even once, though I could feel their heavy stares pressing against me from the darkness. When I finally reached an area with more lights, houses, and signs of life, I felt safer. I stopped at a gas station to catch my breath and check the truck. Everything looked fine, as if nothing had happened. But when I looked closely at the windshield, the ash handprint was still there. Intact. I don't know what happened that night. Since then I've avoided the highway entirely. I don't know if what I saw were real people, shadows, or even demons. All I know is that the image of those figures standing in the middle of nowhere haunted me for days. I don't think I'll ever have an answer to what I experienced that night. What was it those figures really wanted? Sometimes things like this remind you that, on the road, you're not as alone as you think. Hello, my name is Salmon, and I've been a trucker for several years now. I move goods all over the country, from heavy machinery to simpler things like groceries. Let me tell you something, in this job you quickly learn that not everything on the road is what it seems. Sometimes the problem isn't traffic, potholes, or sharp curves, but what can cross your path. And I don't mean animals, there are worse things, things with no remorse about giving you a very bad time. This happened to me some time ago on a route in Jalisco, on a stretch I don't usually take because it's lonelier than a desert at dawn. But that time they sent me through there because supposedly it was faster and had fewer checkpoints, since sometimes authorities use them to take advantage. What I didn't know was that the real problem wasn't the checkpoints, it was something much worse. It was about 1 in the morning, one of those nights when the road is so quiet it actually makes you uneasy. Everything was dark, No houses, no gas stations, not a soul for miles. Suddenly, in the rearview mirror, I saw red and blue lights. They looked like patrol lights, though it gave me a bad feeling since there was no reason to stop me. I slowed down, thinking, well, if they're police, what could go wrong? I've got everything in order. I pulled the truck over to the side, and behind me stopped a white pickup with strobe lights flashing. It wasn't an official patrol, but on those roads sometimes the police use vehicles like that, also I thought. From the driver's side, a man stepped out in uniform. He had boots, dark pants, and a shirt with a logo I couldn't quite read. He wore a cap and had a gun on his waist. He walked up to my window and greeted me firmly. "Good evening, friend. We're inspecting vehicles. We need to check your cargo. There are reports of contraband in the area." His tone was serious and authoritative, like someone used to giving orders. But from the start, something didn't feel right. First, his uniform had no official insignia, no state seal or anything like that. He didn't have a badge or a name tag either, as real officers do. And worst of all, his weapon didn't look standard issue. It looked like an AK-47. I told him my cargo was legal, that I was hauling spare parts for a mechanic shop, but he insisted. He said that if I didn't open the trailer, they'd have to take me to a checkpoint for a more detailed inspection. While we talked, I noticed in the mirror that another man got out of the pickup and headed toward my trailer. That's when I saw something that put me on full alert. Behind the truck, almost hidden in the shadows, there was a third person crouching down as if inspecting the tires or looking underneath. "What are they doing?" I asked the supposed officer, trying not to sound nervous. He looked at me calmly but ignored the question, just repeating that I should open the trailer. At that moment I understood, this wasn't a real checkpoint. They were setting me up for something, and it was clearly not an inspection. I don't know if it was instinct or pure fear, but I decided I wasn't going to stay there and wait for the worst. I locked the doors and prepared to take off. The man began shouting at me to turn off the truck, to stay put, but I ignored him. Looking ahead, I saw they had placed an improvised barrier with cones and a long plank. If I go through, I'll damage the truck and I can't afford repairs, I thought. But if I stayed, it would probably be worse. I floored the accelerator. At first, the truck moved slowly, pushing aside the cones and plank. I heard pounding on the cab, probably from the man at my window, but I didn't stop. In the mirror, I saw the other two men running back to their truck. But by then I was in full survival mode. Minutes later, the red and blue lights appeared again. Now it was clear they were following me, and they weren't police. They were worse, criminals using that tactic to rob or kidnap drivers. My heart was pounding, but I wasn't stopping for anything. Fortunately, the road was narrow, and they couldn't overtake me. Still, every time I checked the mirror, they were there, trying to catch me. After about 20 minutes, which felt like hours, I finally saw something that gave me hope, a real checkpoint, with official patrol cars and bright white lights across the road. I slowed down and stopped in front of the officers. As soon as I rolled down the window, I explained what had happened and pointed out the pickup that had been following me. The officers reacted immediately, setting up a barricade and preparing to intercept. But to my surprise, the pickup never showed up. Without me realizing it, they must have taken another road and vanished into the dark. After inspecting my truck and confirming everything was in order, the officers explained that the area was known for a group of criminals who used fake vehicles and phony uniforms to stop truckers, rob their cargo, or even kidnap them. They told me I was lucky I had acted quickly, because many others didn't make it. Since then, I never stop unless I am completely sure of who's pulling me over. That experience left me paranoid about being followed. Now, every time I see patrol lights, whether on the highway or even in the city, I'm more alert than ever. Thanks for listening.